The surface story is Verstappen hates the 2026 regulations, but the real, buried story is far more damaging to Red Bull specifically. The team made a deliberate, calculated gamble at the end of 2025. They chose to chase Lando Norris rather than prepare for 2026. They poured resources into the old car. They pushed late into a dead regulation cycle. And that decision has now created a chain reaction, an uncompetitive 2026 car, a disillusioned four-time champion, and a contract exit clause that has quietly become a loaded weapon. The thesis: Verstappen didn't abandon Red Bull. Red Bull's own decision-making backed him into a corner, and now he has a legal way out that they built for him. Red Bull team principal Laurent Mekies admitted on the Beyond the Grid podcast that the team is paying a bit of the price for its decision to continue developing the 2025 car late into last season rather than pivot resources to 2026. The team narrowly lost the 2025 drivers' title. Verstappen finished just 2 points behind Lando Norris. In 2026, across 3 rounds Australia, China, Japan, Verstappen has finished P6 Australia, retired from China, and finished P8 at Japan, while sitting 9th in the Drivers' Championship with 12 points. He was knocked out in Q2 at Suzuka by Racing Bull's rookie Arvid Lindblad. ESPN sources report a contract exit clause exists specifically tied to the 2026 regulations. If Verstappen is not first or second in the competitive order at mid-season, he can leave. Verstappen told BBC Sport after Japan he is thinking about everything and described forcing himself to give 100% without enjoyment as not healthy. He has described the regulations as fundamentally flawed, anti-driving, and terrible. The 2026 regs mandate near 50% of car power from battery, creating yo-yo passing sequences where drivers boost past then immediately lose power on the next straight. Lewis Hamilton has defended the new cars, saying they are more fun than anything in his 20-year career. Mercedes leads the championship. The FIA has begun meetings during the April break to discuss potential regulation changes before Miami. A 4-time world champion, 22 races still to go. And right now, with the paddock on its 5-week break, Max Verstappen is sitting somewhere weighing up a question that nobody in Formula One wants to answer. Is it time to leave? Not because he lost. Not because someone beat him fair and square. But because a decision made inside Red Bull Racing, a decision made without him before a single lap of 2026 had even been run, may have cost him the one thing he cannot race without: his enjoyment. And here's what makes this story different from every other Verstappen headline you've seen this year. This was not done to him by the FIA. It was not done to him by Mercedes or McLaren. The chain of events that has brought one of the greatest drivers in Formula One history to the edge of walking away from the sport, it started inside his own garage. It started with a choice his own team made. And the most extraordinary part? They knew the risk when they made it. Let's go back to the final stretch of 2025. Red Bull are in a fight. Lando Norris is closing. Verstappen is 2, 3, sometimes 4 points behind in the championship. The team faces a fork in the road. Do they freeze development on the 2025 car and redirect every engineer, every resource, every aerodynamic hour toward the completely new 2026 machine? Or do they keep pushing, keep upgrading, keep chasing Norris all the way to Abu Dhabi? They chose to fight. Laurent Mekies, who had recently taken over as team principal, described the call as easy. Nobody wanted to give up, he said. And you understand it from the inside. You're 2 points behind a world title. You don't just stop, you push. But here's the real problem. Every hour an engineer spends optimizing the 2025 car is an hour not spent understanding the 2026 one. Every upgrade rushed onto the RB21 in October, November, December. That's bandwidth, headcount, wind tunnel time, simulator runs that never went into the RB22. And the 2026 regulations weren't a small update. They were the largest regulatory overhaul in Formula One history. Entirely new power unit architecture, brand new aerodynamic philosophy. Red Bull building their own engine with Ford for the first time. This wasn't a car you could figure out in pre-season testing. You needed months. And Red Bull had traded months for points. Miki's admitted it on record. The time and energy we invested for the late push last year, does it have an impact on where you start 2026? Of course it does. Of course we pay a bit of the price today. A bit. That phrase is doing a lot of work right now. Because Verstappen arrives at the 2026 season opener in Australia and immediately something is wrong. Not subtly wrong, deeply wrong. He finishes 6th, and afterwards he says he was completely drained emotionally just from driving the car, not from the result, from the experience of driving it. Think about what that means for a second. This is a man who debuted in Formula 1 at 17, who won his first race at 18, who has driven everything from backmarker machinery to the most dominant car this sport has ever produced. And his feedback after his first Grand Prix of the new era isn't about pace, it isn't about setup, it's about emotional exhaustion. That tells you everything about what is happening inside that cockpit. Then, China. Verstappen retires. On the way out, he describes the regulations as terrible and says directly that if someone actually enjoys watching this, then they don't know what real racing is. Strong words. But he wasn't alone. Lando Norris, the reigning world champion, said Formula 1 went from its best cars in 2025 to its worst in 2026. Fernando Alonso called it the Battery World Championship and said the lifting and coasting required through high-speed corners is now so basic that his team's hospitality chef could manage it. Even Charles Leclerc, who had been defending the new cars, lost patience at Suzuka, saying in qualifying it was, in his own colourful terms, a complete joke that pushing harder was actually making him slower. And this is where it changes. Because the technical reason behind all of this frustration is not abstract, it is physics. Simple, unavoidable physics. The 2026 regulations mandate that roughly half of a car's total power comes from its battery pack. Not 10%, not 20%, nearly half. The internal combustion engine is now essentially a generator as much as it is a propulsion unit, recharging the battery through a combination of harvesting under braking and harvesting through the heat of the engine itself. Now imagine what that does on track. A driver deploys their full battery charge to make an overtake. They get the move done. They're passed. But then they arrive at the next straight and the battery is depleted. The car that was just behind them? Their battery is now full. They have power. Your car doesn't. They repass you immediately. Verstappen described it from inside the car at Japan. He tried to pass Pierre Gasly. He got the move done into the final chicane. And then, his words, "You have no battery the next straight." So I was like, see you later. The car that was slower than him, driven by someone he'd just overtaken, simply drove past him because of a number on an energy management screen. That matters more than it sounds, because Verstappen's complaint has never been about losing. He's said it himself, he can accept P7. He can accept P8. He has been there before. What he cannot accept, what he describes as anti-driving, is being in a car where the outcome of a battle has less to do with your skill and more to do with who pressed their boost button first. Where a rookie can knock you out of Q2 not because they're faster, but because the battery architecture rewards a different driving style. Where the regulation framework has effectively rewired what it means to be fast. And he warned about this, not in 2026, in 2023. 3 years ago, from the cockpit of the most dominant car in Formula 1 history, Verstappen sat in Austria and told Autosport that the 2026 rules were heading in the wrong direction. He talked about the ratio between thermal and electrical power. He talked about weight. He talked about what happens to a car when the combustion engine becomes secondary. Nobody at the FIA changed the direction. And now here we are. But watch this. Because this is where Red Bull's problem becomes existential. Buried inside Verstappen's contract with Red Bull, a contract that runs until the end of 2028, is an exit clause. a specific, targeted escape mechanism. And according to ESPN sources, this clause was added knowing exactly what 2026 might bring. Verstappen's team negotiated it with the new regulations specifically in mind. The reported terms: if Verstappen is not in the top 2 of the competitive order by the summer break, he has the right to leave. Not just to switch teams, to leave Formula One entirely. Now look at where Red Bull actually are. 3 races in, Verstappen is 9th in the championship. The team is nowhere near the front. Mercedes leads. McLaren and Ferrari are competitive, Red Bull are lost. It would take an extraordinary turnaround between now and mid-season, the kind Miki says he believes is possible, pointing to their 2025 recovery to make that clause irrelevant. So what was originally designed as a safety net, a way for Verstappen to assess the competitive landscape under new rules and potentially move elsewhere on the grid if Red Bull underperformed, has now transformed into something else entirely. It has become his way out of the sport. Here's the part that should frighten Red Bull most. He might not even want to move to another team. ESPN sources indicate Verstappen is leaning toward a sabbatical rather than a full retirement. And a sabbatical in Formula One almost never ends with a return. The sport moves too fast. 2 years away means 2 years of development, 2 years of driver rosters shifting, 2 years of accumulated technical debt that no amount of talent fully eliminates. Verstappen could come back, but there is no guarantee he would want to. He's already racing elsewhere. The weekend before the Japanese Grand Prix, he drove at the Nürburgring in a GT3 race, not testing, racing, with real competition, real battles, real enjoyment. He described it with a warmth that has been completely absent from his Formula One weekend interviews this season. He talks about his GT team, about the passion he has for projects outside the paddock. These are not the words of a man counting the days until his Formula One car is competitive again. These are the words of a man who is quietly building an alternative. Subscribe now. Ralf Schumacher, speaking on Sky Sport Germany, offered what might be the most honest assessment of the situation from anyone in the paddock. He said, plainly, that if Verstappen wants to stop, then so be it, that someone else will come along, that the sport survives the loss of great champions, as it always has. He pointed to Ishak Hadjar, the Racing Bulls rookie who knocked Verstappen out of Q2 at Suzuka. Young talent exists. The sport continues. But Schumacher also acknowledged something more personal. He said he knows exactly what it feels like. The relentless travel, the endless calendar, the 22, 23, 24 race seasons stacked back to back with no room to breathe. He described Verstappen's inability to do something as simple as play cards with friends on a Wednesday evening as symptomatic of a life that has stopped belonging to him. He can't do any of that at the moment, Schumacher said. And the weight behind those words is heavier than any lap time gap. Verstappen is 28 years old. He has 4 world championships. He has won more races than almost anyone who has ever sat in a Formula One car. And right now he is telling BBC Sport that forcing himself to give 100% when he is not enjoying it is, his word, not healthy. Not healthy. That is a man who has already crossed a threshold in his own mind. And this is where the story loops back to Red Bull. Laurent Mekies' position is clear. He is not discussing Verstappen's future. He is not entertaining the possibility. His entire public stance is, give him a fast car, and everything resolves itself. I'm sure by the time we give him a fast car, he will be a much happier Max, Mekies said after Japan. That's 100% of our discussions right now. And that might be true. It might be that the April break proves productive, that the FIA meetings yield real regulation changes. The FIA has already signalled openness to adjustments around energy management, and teams are meeting with the governing body before Miami. That Red Bull's engineers find the performance they buried in late 2025 and unlock the RB22 over the coming months. But here is the question nobody inside Red Bull can fully answer, even if the car improves. Does Verstappen still want to be there? Because the exit clause was never only about performance, it was also about philosophy. Verstappen has consistently said his dissatisfaction with the 2026 regulations is not driven by Red Bull's results. He has said he can accept being P7 or P8. What he cannot accept is the formula itself. The battery management, the artificial passing, the energy deployment strategies replacing the instinctive, aggressive racing that built his career. A faster Red Bull car still runs under the same rules. A faster Red Bull car still requires the same lifting and coasting, the same battery gaming, the same approach to overtaking that he has described as contrary to everything a racing driver should feel. Now watch this, because this is the question worth asking. What if the car becomes competitive and he still doesn't enjoy it? What does Mickey's do then? What does Red Bull offer a driver whose problem is not with the machinery, but with the sport itself? After the Chinese Grand Prix, Verstappen did something that, according to ESPN sources, had never happened before. He invited Mickey's and his longtime race engineer Gianpiero Lambiase to fly home with him on his private jet. It was described as an opportunity for frank, direct conversation between Verstappen and the key figures in his race team. The kind of conversation that doesn't happen in a debrief room with data engineers listening. The kind that happens when someone needs to say things they cannot say publicly. Whatever was said on that flight, it has not yet changed the trajectory of the season. And the 5-week break now becomes its own kind of crossroads. For the FIA, it is a chance to respond to a widespread driver revolt against the regulations. For Red Bull, it is a chance to extract performance from a car that has been underperforming since the very first lap of the year. And for Verstappen, it is a chance to sit without a race weekend bearing down on him and answer the question he has been circling for 3 months. Is Formula One in 2026 the version of this sport he wants to be part of? The contract clause was supposed to be insurance. A sophisticated piece of negotiation that gave Verstappen options and gave Red Bull a target. Perform or lose your driver. Simple enough. But insurance policies are written for anticipated risks, not for the one scenario the policyholder didn't see coming. Red Bull anticipated that a poor 2026 car might push Verstappen to consider Mercedes. They didn't anticipate that the regulations themselves, the entire philosophical framework of the sport, might push him to consider nothing at all. And now that gap between what Red Bull can fix and what Red Bull cannot fix is the most dangerous space in Formula One. Because you can build a faster car. You cannot rebuild a driver's love for a sport he's decided he no longer recognizes. If you've made it this far into this story, you already know this is bigger than a few bad race weekends. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Verstappen stays? Does the FIA make real changes? And if you think Formula One without Verstappen is worth watching or isn't, let us know why. If this kind of in-depth analysis is what you want more of, hit subscribe and make sure you're here for every video. And if this one got you thinking, leave it a like, it genuinely helps more people find this channel. We will be watching every development through this April break very closely. The next race is Miami, and by then, a lot of things, maybe everything, could look different.